Hello and welcome to the Physical Preparation Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Robertson, and I'll be joined on the line later today by the one and only Matej Hocevar. Now, before we jump into this week's episode, I'm going to give you a quick recap of the week that was, the weekend, give you a few things that I'm super jazzed about this week, and then we will jump into the show. So let's start with the weekend, and it was very nice to have a weekend with minimal work involved. Got some quality time in with pretty much each family member on an individual basis. Got some time to just hang out and chill with Cade and play with Cade. Got to take Kendall out to brunch on Sunday, which was nice, just her and I. And then actually, believe it or not, Jess and I got away for about an hour and a half on Saturday night. Had a date night, just went down the road, had a nice dinner together. It was nice to just kind of chill, be out of the house, kid-free, and enjoy each other's company. So really good weekend. Also, man, crushed the training on Saturday, and not the training in the way that you would normally think of it. It wasn't massive weights or anything like that, but something I've made a bigger focus here lately is just getting more steps in, moving more, being more active. So kind of finding the long way into staying fit. So, we've all heard, park your car super far out in the parking lot, or take the stairs versus the escalator. Man, I've done all those things, but on Saturday, I cut my own grass, so I did all that. Then I met my guy Geelan Robinson. We met at the park, did some tempo runs because he's priming and getting himself ramped up for the CFL season. Then after the tempo runs, came back and just did extra yard work, raked a bunch of the grass was super high, so raked the grass, all that. Man, I smashed 3,200 calories burned by noon that day. So then I think the goal the rest of the day was just to chill as much as humanly possible. I think I probably only burned 500 the rest of the day. But good weekend. And the best part, I think, about the weekend was turning it around. And on Monday, today, as I'm recording this, iFast is open for business. It has been the longest, possibly most stressful 2.5 months that I've ever had as a business owner. And look, if you've owned a business for 1 year or 20, there's ups and downs, right? It's the life of an entrepreneur. It's kind of what you sign up for. But I don't think any of us have ever seen something like this before, where you literally have to shut down your business for a very extended period of time. And even when you come back, it's not like things are back to normal, right? We're taking our temperature when we walk in. We're wearing face masks or face shields all over the facility. People are genuinely, to some extent, scared to come back. Not everybody is going to come back right away. But, look, I'm grateful that today we are open back up. The gym is rolling again. Seeing the people's faces, seeing how excited they were to be back in the gym made me feel really good. So excited about that. Excited that we are so close to having iFastU back open again. As I know I've mentioned a couple times on the show, it has been just such an ordeal to get this set up, and my poor web guy, Matt, who helps me out with all this stuff, bet he was ready to pull whatever hair he had left out during this project. But we are close. We've got the WordPress working now. I'm working on the main page, so when you go there, there's actually a link to pay and sign up and get going, but very excited about that. And I think the great thing about iFastU is, look, number one, you get me and Bill, 100%. Not to take anything away from any of the other amazing people that have worked at iFast or that have been a part of iFastU, but the resounding feedback that I've gotten time and again is that people want more Mike and Bill. So that's what you're going to get. So if you sign up, you get a lot of Mike and Bill. You're going to get something from us every single week. So just really excited to get that up and running again. And I think it's also going to fit in really well because while I do offer private coaching and private mentorships, a lot of people just aren't in that space right now, especially financially. They're not looking to pay $400 to $600 a month for private mentorship. And some are, right? But, I've had a lot of people that were mentees and they're just look, financially, I can't do this right now. So when you open iFastU, we're there. So I'm excited about that because I think the timing is perfect. It's going to hit a definite sweet spot with regards to pricing. It's going to be under $100 a month, 2 pieces of content every month, 2 Q&A Zoom calls. It's going to be the bomb. So very excited to get that up. Excited to have training going again. This is actually my busy time of year. I couldn't really talk about it before because I didn't want to risk the $1,000 fine, or more importantly, the 180 days in jail. But man, I've had people in my gym for about 6 weeks now. Not many. And the first 2 to 3 weeks of that were Glenn only. I mean, it was just Glenn because Glenn had already been tested when he was with the 76ers. Their whole team was tested, so I don't think that's anything new. But man, I just wanted to get him in. Want to make sure I take great care of him. He's in a contract year. I want to see him be successful. And then as soon as I could, I started getting my other guys back in because like everything's up in the air, right? Like we don't know when people are going to go back to sports. When they do go back, are they going to play meaningful games? How long is it going to be till they play meaningful games? What is their training camp going to look like? How long are they going to have to ramp up? These are all questions that not just myself, but every physical prep coach that works in the professional collegiate ranks is dealing with right now. So I just knew for me personally, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if something happened to one of my athletes due to a lack of preparation. I mean, that is our job, right? That's why we call ourselves physical preparation coaches. So, I jumped through all the hoops, all the disinfectant, cleaning up everything, temperature checking myself. So I'm excited that now we can kind of lift the veil and say, yeah, we're in the gym, we're getting work in, and just excited, man. I'm still excited to do what I do, probably even more so now because it was kind of taken away from us for a while. So I'm really re-energized, ready to get back in the gym, help all these guys and girls that I work with get better. So just really kind of on cloud nine right now. Last but not least, the content. The content, my friend, is coming. I feel like it's very steady. It's going to continue to be steady. I've got a great kind of system going here, and it's getting better by the day. But I'm trying to shoot, at least 2 to 3 more like talking head type videos each week. That's on top of, the little snippets that I do, the video demos, or like the coaching exercise demo things. So I feel like that's going really well. If you're not on YouTube or Instagram, I would highly recommend go to one of those two because I try and put stuff up on both. I know people have kind of a love-hate relationship with each. So whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, if you're not following me on those places, I think you're missing out on some really great content. And, it's probably not stuff that's going to revolutionize the way you're writing programs or coaching your clients, but it's little tweaks that are going to make you better. So that's going really, really well. And then the podcast, good to see the numbers creeping up. Like we've been very steady this year, like eerily steady as far as downloads. So I'm continuing to push. I'm going to make a big push because I want to hit 30K downloads this month. We've been at like 26, 27 the last 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to make a big push. I'm even running some Facebook ads, boosting the posts, all that good stuff just to try and get more people to the show. So anything you can do to help just spread the word would be greatly appreciated, whether it's taking your favorite episode and sending it to one of your friends, family members, coach, trainer, athlete, whoever you think would benefit from it. Like just you connecting with one other person can make a big impact because we have a trickle down effect from there. So, all right, I have rambled long enough. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to jump into this awesome show with my boy Matej. One thing Bill Hartman and I have talked about for years now is the power of mentorship. Early on, I didn't have a mentor to shape or guide me, or most importantly, help me find the blind spots in my own training and coaching. But luckily, after many years of trial and error, I found Bill, and my professional success exploded as a result. But the downside to the mentorship process, at least professionally, is that it can be pricey. For private mentees that I work with, it costs anywhere from $3.99 to $5.99 per month to work together. And while I know the results go far beyond that price, the fact of the matter is that just won't work for a lot of folks. So when Bill and I sat down a while back, we asked ourselves a really tough question. How can we help shape the future of the industry and truly make it great? And beyond that, how can we create amazing content yet make it affordable to virtually every trainer or coach out there? And the answer for us was simple: restart iFast University. Here's what you'll get when you become a member of iFast University. One update each month from myself and Bill. This could cover anything from improving exercise technique to writing better programs and everything in between. Twice per month Q&As, where Bill and I will personally answer your questions to help you become better at training, coaching, or even running your fitness business. A Facebook group where you'll be surrounded by like-minded trainers and coaches who are serious about getting better, and access to the iFastU archives, where you'll be able to watch literally hundreds of pieces of content from the iFast team over the years. This blend of content and Q&A is specifically designed to help make you the best trainer or coach possible. If you're interested in learning more, head on over to ifastuniversity.com to get signed on. We'd love to have you on board. Matej Hocevar is a guy I often refer to as the world's most interesting man. Matej is the owner of Vigor Move and Live in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and since our last show, he's completed a master's degree and become a dad for the first time. In this episode, Matej and I talk about a bunch of different topics. We start with a serious chat about sports science and how to use it practically without getting overwhelmed with the data. From there, we spin off and we talk about training adults and the concessions that you have to make or that you should be making as you get older. And last but not least, we talk about his pet project, the Movement Culture documentary. As always, this show with Matej doesn't disappoint. I really hope you enjoy it. This is one of my favorite human beings in the whole world, so I really hope you enjoy this episode. But enough for me, let's do this. Matej, man, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Really excited to have you back on. If someone didn't listen to our first episode, could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me back. It seems like I had something good to say last time round. And yeah, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be on here. I know you've got some of the best people in the business on here. I follow the podcast literally every week. And I have done so for probably last 5 or 6 years. So it really is a privilege, not just once, but to be invited back on a second time. It's a fantastic honor. Yeah, I mean, kind of the short story is about now 14 years ago, started a company, a gym in Slovenia, Ljubljana, called Vigor Ground. At the time, it was with my brother, Luka Hocevar, who some of your listeners may know.
Yeah.
And also another friend of mine, Žigaur, who's still a partner in the gym. Yeah, since then we've gone through, trials, tribulations of, opening a small gym, basically coaching whoever we were able to, fortunate to coach at the time, which was at the time mostly young people, athletes who kind of, their sporting careers and were looking, to keep training at a high level. So that was kind of our audience, which with time has grown and, along with us. So we now cater to professional athletes, youth athletes, obviously general population, which includes seniors. So my dad, who's 72, he trains in our gym.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's really cool to have him on board as well. Yeah, even down to the kids. So we had a junior program as well. So for 6, 7, 8-year-olds. So yeah, I mean, whoever's looking to kind of, improve their movement and their fitness, we're here to help.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
The last couple of years, I've been focusing more on the soccer side of things as well. I used to be a professional athlete for a little while and played a decent level international in my youth days. And then I just kind of, ended my career quite early at 24, 25 and moved into training. Now I have the opportunity to give back, I suppose. I'm currently head of strength and conditioning at Olimpia Ljubljana, which is like the number one team here in Slovenia, I'd like to think. The lads the lads have actually just qualified for the Youth Champions League, which is quite kind of a big deal for us. And I'm in my 3rd season there, and yeah, I'm really kind of engaging in that. Really lucky in a way to be able to help the guys a stage of their career where I was at, many moons ago, and kind of enjoying life. A bit of an expansion in the family as well. I had a baby 9 months ago.
Yeah, man. So, you got a lot going on.
That's what's up. Yeah,
I love it. For sure. I love it. So other than the little one, what else is new since we chatted? What changes have you had professionally since then?
Right. So, well, I've been doing more consulting work now. I think much like yourself, and here in Slovenia, it's even more pronounced. The young fitness professional completes their, degree, undergraduate, even graduate degree, and they don't know where to start, how to get people on board. So the young kids who are coming into the industry and working with groups of people and youth athletes, all these type of groups, they haven't really got a clue where to start, even though they do have an academic base to work from. So I'm trying to help these guys and girls out to basically start them off. And, some of them actually, own their own gyms, small spaces. Some are working out of big box gyms. So that's one thing. Obviously, the other thing is I'm getting engaged in the soccer side of things. So, 4 times a week, I'm down, on the pitch with the guys for their training sessions. And then obviously I'm working at Vigor Ground in semi-private, private setting with professional athletes and also general I've also I'm just finishing my master's degree in strength and conditioning at St Mary's University in London, Twickenham. And this is really now my third year. So it got me back into academia quite late in the game, I'd say, but it's been really enjoyable, I have to say. Very applied setting. I went into that on the back of some advice from Mladen Jovanovic, who you also had on the podcast. And I respect his advice quite a lot. I asked him what he thinks, whether I should, go and do a master's, whatever. And he gave me a couple of suggestions. And based on that, I signed up for St Mary's, and I'm not sorry one bit. So it's kind of, going back into this more on the sports science part of the business. And it's helped me to basically make different decisions, kind of filter and I'd say change my methodology and approach to training. I'd say evolve the monitoring side of things a little bit more.
Okay.
And I wouldn't really like to go down the route of, what's science and evidence based, but it's definitely, kind of reduces your bias in certain areas for sure.
I gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I would love to kind of jump in here because I've got a ton of topics I want to cover. And I think I'd love to start with soccer because I know you've not only played at a high level, but you've coached now at a high level as well. So let's start with something that I don't think most people talk about or even think about when they're getting started as a team sport physical prep coach. And so what I'd love for you to talk a little bit about is the differences between being on the pitch with them and being in the gym with them. So how are the dynamics different when you move from being on the pitch, which is their world, to coming into the weight room, which is your world?
Well, first of all, that's a really good analogy, their world and my world. I'd say I'm kind of privileged here to be working with these guys because, that used to be my world as well. Mm-hmm. So I can relate to what it was when I was 17, 18 years old. You've got all these ideas in your head, you're going to play professionally, you're going to play abroad. And, I was willing to train my socks off every time I went on the pitch. And these guys, they love their football or soccer rather, but they don't really like going to the gym. But I think these days the tide's turned a little bit. And I'd say some of them, I wouldn't say most of them, know that it's become almost a necessity to kind of, basically improve their physical performance across the board so that, just training with the ball is not enough. But for sure, there's a lot of anxiety with especially the young players coming into the gym because, they don't know. Sometimes it will be the parents that will introduce them. Sometimes it will be their agent because, by the way, everyone who's like 14 years and can kick a ball has an agent these days.
Yes.
So it might be players coming into our facility without them actually, asking to come into the facility. So first of all, it's about, kind of talking the same language, communication. So explaining to them how this will help their game on the pitch, first and foremost. And obviously the guys who I train on the pitch, some of them come into my gym as well. So it's a much easier transition in that case because already on the pitch, I'm explaining what kind of limitations I may be seeing. And obviously I don't use those negative words with them, but I'm trying to basically steer them into the direction where, you want to be a robust athlete. It doesn't matter if you're a soccer player, basketball player, whatever, but, we're trying to get you more robust and basically basically get you resistant to injuries such as hamstring tears and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I think once I speak their language, it's much easier to introduce them into the gym environment. And look, it's not been easy because sometimes they still don't know what's a good gym environment and what's not. So they'll see stuff on YouTube and they'll just look at some exercises that they think are sexy. And, sometimes they'll ask me, are we going to do, chest and upper back and stuff like that? And I have to explain to them why we're doing that, this program,
Yep.
So I think it's a cliche, but definitely communication is key here. And, obviously I was that kid, 18 years old on the pitch, trying to make it big. I think it's easier for me because I've been there to explain, why they're in the gym and why they're doing the stuff that I'm asking them to do, really.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's interesting too is because we're approximately the same age, or at least in the same age range, right? And like we remember like how we came up, and it wasn't programs like we write today. It was like chest and back or bodybuilding splits or whatever the bodybuilders did. So I think now it's helpful because we remember, hey, like, yeah, it was a while ago, but we remember what it's like to be a 17, 18-year-old kid, right? And you want to build the showy muscles and you want to look good, obviously on the pitch, but you want to look good off the pitch, right? Because there's other interesting things in life. But I think it's helpful now that we have better explanations, right? And we can explain like, look, here's why you may want to do this. And maybe we can sprinkle some of that in, but here's why we're doing this. And here's how it's actually going to improve your performance. And I think when you can help them understand like, okay, this is where this would be valuable, right? The chest and back day versus this is what we're doing and how it's going to help your performance. I think if you can explain that at a high level, it's so much easier to get buy-in, because if you don't have a good explanation as to why what they want to do won't necessarily help them, you're really going to struggle to make that connection and to get the buy-in that you want.
Exactly. And I think obviously, some of the guys, even their parents may know me or have known me as a player before, so I have a little bit of clout there.
Yes.
And then I was fortunate enough, obviously, it's definitely not just down to me. I was fortunate enough to work with some players, 18, 19, who went on to make it really big in Slovenia and in Europe, playing in some of the biggest European clubs. And, so that brought me a little clout as well. Obviously, the soccer community is pretty tight knit. So, one player will tell the other, look, this guy, he's the best around, go and check him out. So, on the back of that, I've been able to develop a bit of a niche in soccer, of course. And like I said, obviously, you need to know what you're doing, but obviously there's a bit of luck there as well, because you need to find the right moment, and you never know how these players will develop. So for me, again, maybe another cliche, but a really important part of it is, we want to develop, better people, not just better athletes and players. If you come into my gym and you walk out the gym and you're still an asshole, then I've not done my job, and I really believe that. So I'm happy to say that the guys I started training 7-8 years ago who've done me proud and who've gone to play in really big clubs, they're still the guys who come into the gym every off season to work with me for 1 to 2 months, whatever time they've got, and during the international break. So I think probably that's one of the highest achievements you can really have, is basically those relationships that go deep.
Absolutely. Yeah. When those people keep coming back, that tells you you're kind of doing something right. So,
yeah.
So another piece of the soccer world and soccer puzzle that I'm fascinated by is this concept of tactical periodization. Now, this may be an unfamiliar term if you're not in the soccer space. So for those that are unfamiliar, would you mind explaining kind of what tactical periodization is, and then talk about how you apply your piece to that specific puzzle?
Well, tactical periodization was thought up by a Portuguese coach and teacher, Vitor Frade was his name. And it's actually been now applied to quite a lot of sports. I think it's becoming more and more prevalent in basketball and other team sports, rugby. And I think it's coming into American football as well, I think. So the basic idea is specificity in one word, I'd say. So basically breaking the game down into pieces of play, using small-sided games, so basically by manipulating pitch or court size and the number of players in the attack or defense, or offense defense as you guys call it, and basically then also run the energy systems by basically breaking that down into different intervals. So you may have one day that's more extensive, so the pitch may be bigger with more players, and then another day you may have a more intensive day with a small pitch or a small court with fewer players, where you have more changes of direction, more eccentric stress. And that's it. In that way, tactical periodization is basically implemented into a weekly microcycle, if you wish. So if you got a Saturday to Saturday cycle to train, so you basically on different days you'll manipulate the pitch size to fit in with your targeted energy systems, different themes, I'd say. So be it speed, deceleration, acceleration, collision, in rugby, that's a big thing, American football too. So I actually think it's a great methodology. I think it's probably the best we've got right now. But I think in a certain way it's flawed, because, some areas will not get overloaded enough, and we know that overload is, essential part to adaptation. And obviously here it's, again, a big challenge is, speaking the same language as the sports coach, right?
Yep.
So we need to be on the same page as why we may need to top up certain athletic or physical abilities. And that's really where I come in. At least that's where I think my role lies. So, the guys will not, as you may well know, you've studied soccer quite a bit as you've worked in soccer a bit as well. Not many players, especially guys and, centre backs and some midfielders will hit their maximum velocity during games or training.
Yep.
So, and we know based on recent and not so recent research that, exposing players to maximum velocity is probably the best way to protect them against hamstring injuries, right?
Yep.
Especially having sound biomechanics of sprinting, running, changes of direction. So what I really do is basically I try to use a tactical periodization model that we apply in the club. And I try to basically microdose physical elements or capacities based on the training menu that day. So for example, if we have a match on a Saturday, then because they're youth team players, Sunday's off, right?
Yeah.
And on a Monday, we'll get them introduced into training. So it'll be kind of like a lighter session. We may do some weight work in the gym, maybe not, depending on the player. But then on match day +3, that is, so on a Tuesday, we will go into accelerations, decelerations, so small spaces, changes of direction. It will be quite eccentric focused. So this may include stuff like, resisted sprinting, resisted accelerations, 10, 20 meters with a sled, and then small spaces where there'll be like 2-on-2 situations. And then on a Wednesday, we'll kind of use a bigger pitch size to kind of, extensify and use more aerobic qualities. There won't be so much, I'd say, stop in, start in. Players have got more time, I guess, more space to move around in. And
Yes.
then on Thursday, which is match day -2, we will focus on speed. So that doesn't mean just, kind of physical speed, sprinting and stuff, but also, cognitive speed, making decisions in a short space of time. And that gives us just enough time to kind of recover for game day on a Saturday, and basically wrap the week up. And then on a Friday, I take a back seat, obviously, because it's more of a walkthrough, tactical
Right.
stuff, corners, set pieces, and so forth. So I would say, my bit is like mostly focused on the Tuesday and the Thursday. So obviously also Monday. So match day +2, match day +3, and then match day -2, I guess, where I develop the physical qualities that I feel are key to protecting these guys in terms of injury prevention, and also, enhancing performance. And during the season, obviously, it will mostly be maintenance. Some guys will be able to develop based on the number of games you got. It will mostly be maintenance.
Yeah. I think when I read that book, as I was really getting into the soccer space, it just made so much sense to me. I was like, they're literally trying to do with soccer practice what we do when we lay out a training program, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so what you just described, and I know I've talked about this in different areas before, but, is basically planning the week around, hey, look, we're not trying to peak like once every 3 months or every 6 months like a track and field athlete. Essentially, you're trying to create a peak every Saturday, right? So that you're performing at a high level. And so when you break down that weekly microcycle, like Tuesday, at least when I was doing it, like that's going to be generally a pretty high intensity day. Like you said, on the pitch, they're probably going to play small-sided, intense games, lots of cutting. When we go in the gym, hey, if I'm going to go like a heavy day that's going to have some delayed onset muscle soreness, it's going to be Tuesday because I know I have the most recovery time to get ready for Saturday. And another thing that may help if you are unfamiliar with this concept of tactical periodization and changing pitch size or amount of players on the pitch is just imagine being in a really small space and you're playing 2-on-2, right? So like half court basketball, if you're familiar with that sport. 2-on-2, like you can't really hide, right?
No way.
Versus if you open that up and you play full court 5-on-5, it's not really that big of a deal if you don't run back on offense or defense every now and then, like you can hide. And that's especially true in soccer when they open it up to a full pitch size and you've got 10v10 or 11v11. Well, now, like, hey, man, if you don't make a run one time, it's probably not a huge deal. So I think that helps you kind of understand how intense the game is going to be and the energy systems you're going to train. It just helps you have a better understanding of like, what is the coach trying to get out of this specific drill or exercise?
I think a good analogy for the strength coach here is basically manipulating density of work, right? I mean, when you've got so you mentioned like on a Tuesday, or you'd have like a 2v2. So that's a lot of, number of repetitions, number of actions every minute or whatever time frame you're working in. It's going to be very high. So in the gym, for instance, if you wanted to recreate that, you could be doing like every minute on the minute stuff, maybe doing cluster sets, stuff like that, depending on the modality you want to get out. But, you're either using weightlifting derivatives or just, basic lifts or whatever. But if you wanted to kind of match that up, and my experience with Altis, and I think I talked about that on the previous episode, was really insightful in terms of like, they would pair up their, theme on the track with the gym, or rather vice versa, right? Obviously, the gym-based stuff would be secondary to what they were doing on the track. But they would pair it up. So, like, when they would do accelerations, it would usually be max strength stuff, and then on when they were doing max speed, they would be doing dynamic effort stuff. Just based on the speed of movement, the time and the tension, and so forth.
Gotcha. So I want to kind of take that topic and expand on it a little bit more, because I know you've just wrapped up your thesis. Congrats. And I'd love to hear more about neuromuscular fatigue in soccer. So how do you go about adding in these objective measures and monitoring in sport, while at the same time not just getting totally overwhelmed and bogged down with all the data?
Yeah, so first and foremost, when I was first introduced to neuromuscular fatigue and, monitoring neuromuscular fatigue, that's exactly what happened. I got myself force plate, so got a Force X, a pair of force plates.
Yep.
And when their rep came down to show me, the way they worked, I'd been familiar with obviously the technology and everything before, but then, every single time someone would do a counter movement jump, thing would spit out like 40 different variables, and you're like, what am I looking at?
Right.
So yeah, I think being kind of down in the trenches now with the sports scientists and basically going through tons of research and making sense of what's important and what's not. So what to measure and what not to measure. I've come up with a more clear idea of what I'm looking at. And, huge inspiration here has been Matt Jordan. He's a Canadian strength and conditioning coach working up in Calgary. He was mostly with skiers. And I think Matt's work was really ahead of his time, because he's been doing this like for 20 years or so. He's been looking at metrics that, obviously you can't predict injury, but you can have a certain bandwidth where you want your athletes to be, right? And we are currently looking at, break the counter movement jump in this case into component parts. So, the eccentric component, concentric component, how much power someone's able to generate, relative to their body mass. And, there's about 3 or 4 metrics that I used in my dissertation. That included eccentric braking impulse, so relative peak power, relative to body mass, that is, and RSI modified, right? So reactive strength index modified, basically the flight time to contraction time ratio.
Okay.
And it basically gives you an insight into not just performing the counter movement jump or vertical jump, but how someone's jumping, right? How long they need to produce the power that they need, and is that in line with the time they've got on the pitch to produce power, right? We know that, world-class sprinters, the top sprinters, they only spend like 0.08 seconds on the ground where they're running at max velocity, right? Obviously, for soccer players, that would be a bit more. But, during the acceleration phase, that's even prolonged a little bit. But, we can look at their jumping strategies and see, how they load from one side to the other. If there are major asymmetries, we may look at, kind of addressing that. Obviously, there's some asymmetry that's inherent to the human body. But when, again, they come out of a certain bandwidth, so I'd say a gold standard is about 15%, I'd say.
Okay.
So once they kind of go beyond that, we're going to, signal a red flag and maybe ask them to come in for additional monitoring and assessment to see why
Right.
are they loading one side of the body more than the other, why they may be loading one side of the body more when they're descending into the squat in this case,
Yep.
the eccentric part, and why they're loading the other limb more when they are taking off, and again when they're landing. So I think this needs to be taken simultaneously with some video, because obviously, you can run all the numbers you want, but, you need to see people moving as well. And sometimes I'll have 4 to 6 athletes, go the actual testing. Nowadays these companies have got great software behind all their products, so it's really easy to for the software to spit out data. But while you may go through 4 or 6 players in like 10 minutes, which is great, you really have to take time and look at video later on to see, okay, this guy is really hinging during their jump, as opposed to like using their quads, opening up the knees, and really using that triple flexion.
Yep.
And that can inform and should really inform the program, if they're working with you in the gym as well. And I've had, like, unfortunately for them, fortunately for me, tons of young soccer players rupturing their ACL. So I think I'm about 30 players in now.
Oh, wow.
And after a while you get, recognize certain patterns. And now having, some objective data to work with, it, just kind of, it's a little bit easier for me to detect things that are off, so in a player, and I'll be able to address that before, they may go and rupture it again, or the other one.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal, obviously, and can end the career before it's even started.
So I think the most important word that you said here, and I had written it down because it's something that we have to understand, is strategy is so important here, right? When we're talking about neuromuscular fatigue. So this was something that I think was lost on me. I know definitely when I was a young coach, and it's made more and more sense the longer I've done this, but you have to have tests that are sensitive enough to get what you want, right? So for example, if we just look at a vertical jump in and of itself, and somebody can jump 30 inches, whatever that is in centimeters. But if they can jump 30 centimeters and they do that on Monday and they do that on Tuesday, well, then maybe you would think, oh, they're fine, they're ready to train. But unless you can break it down, you can get more sensitive, like you were talking about, like eccentric RFD. I know that's something that we've looked at in the past. Like that's something that can be massively different. So the strategy and how they create that 30-inch jump can be totally different. Right? One day it could be very bouncy and elastic. The second day it could be very muscular based or more force based. So I think that's just such a great point, and something to remember is you've got to have sensitive measures, because I think far too often we rely on the lowest common denominator, right? Like just a jump height or just a strength number. And how they produce that vertical jump or how they produce that strength can be wholly different on a day-to-day basis.
It's huge. And I was obviously fortunate enough to have GPS technology as well whilst I was doing my thesis or dissertation, what have you. And, obviously sports science is where, we're really trying to kind of like predict, so if you've got X, then Y is going to be, so much and so much. So basically, sports science is really interested about, the outcomes based on, some input, you'd say, right? So we're trying to predict certain things, but, often we can't predict stuff because there's so much stuff that's going on, outside of the game and outside of training as well. But I think neuromuscular fatigue and monitoring it is just a little insight into how you can go about adapting and adjusting your program as you go along, because we all know right now, the days of writing out 3-month program are past, right? In soccer, I've got to adapt on a weekly basis, right? So I think so if I've got 2 sessions with a player every week and I'm testing their neuromuscular fatigue or, their neuromuscular output on a Monday, I'll know, how I can adjust my training on the Tuesday and the Thursday, right? Yep. And that includes the pitch and the gym itself, right? And I don't think it's really, we may go after this, sports science is going to go after the correlations and causations and everything, which is great. But I think, obviously we as, people who are working in the trenches, we've got to have information we can use straight away, right? And I think that's what's important about the monitoring side of things, right? Obviously, one thing is the subjective part where you're talking to people, taking the, wellness and readiness data and questionnaires and looking at body language. I mean, I think that's hugely important, probably in some cases more important than the quote unquote objective data.
Right.
But I think it's really important to have the objective data as well. And I think this is where neuromuscular monitoring can come in really handy.
I love it. So let's shift gears a little bit, because as I recall, you just had a pretty significant birthday. And I would love to know what you've noticed in your own training as you've aged.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I've got him past the 40 mark, and feeling okay still. So you know how it is. So
yes.
I don't need to tell you about it. But the training's definitely adapted. I mean, look, I actually think I can still produce, and I think I'll go back to some of the stuff that your business partner Bill Hartman talked about. You can still, this stage in your life, produce the same power output, I'd say, if you work on it, obviously. But I think it's just the recovery bit that's the missing piece in the puzzle at this stage, I think. And what my training is definitely now, it's actually more enjoyable because I don't feel I have to get a certain number of reps in. I don't feel I have to lift a certain amount of weight. And it's basically all about, feeling good, obviously looking good as well. But, so I'm very cautious of the fact that I'm trying to get in stuff that I know I need, and then also that I get in stuff that I know, I want. So I'm sticking to my, jiu-jitsu training because that's the part that I'm really loving. I'm sticking to my five-a-side soccer, but obviously, I'm not neglecting the gym. And I think the only, or rather the biggest thing has been, I've never been a big 2 hours in the gym kind of guy. Never have been.
I don't know anybody like that.
No, I wouldn't know anyone myself, especially not in my family. But I think as you age, the focus gets much sharper, right? So, and that includes the gym. So I love going into the gym, but I give myself a set amount of time. And, I get, if you want to call the main lifts in, and that's in. And if I get any accessory stuff in, that's great. That's a bonus. If not, I'll again use that term microdose that on the other days when I'm, supposed to be off, I'm doing other stuff. But, it's maybe a 20 minute session where I'm doing like EMOM stuff every minute on the minute, or, just getting some quality density work in, right, in a, I don't know, circuit training fashion or something like that. Yeah. But I think also a big thing is obviously keeping the body fresh and recovered, right? And thankfully, I've you've been here as a speaker, but Slovenia and Ljubljana, offers the great outdoors. So we try to get out and hike a lot, and get out into the nature as much as we can. I think that offsets a lot of the stress in life and in the gym as well. So definitely intensity still there. Volume definitely down, and probably frequency down as well. And I suppose to finish that thought off is not worried about skipping sessions because I know I'm going to get it in the next day or whatever.
Some other way. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know how much older Dan John is than me, but I remember reading a lot of Dan John stuff 10, 12 years ago and just thinking like I get it, but I don't get it. And as I've gotten older, it's like, oh, now I get it.
I get it.
Like he wrote an article a while back called the OLAD program. It was like the 1 lift a day program. It was like you go on one day and you squat. You go on another day and you military press. You go on another day and you deadlift. And at the time, who would want to just do 1 lift a day? And then you get to 40. And it's not even the recovery thing, right? There's that element of impaired recovery. But I think a big part of it, too, is just the time constraints.
Exactly.
Right? You got other stuff going on, man. You've got a family, you've got work, whatever. So it's like, oh, now I really get why that's such a big deal. So I've got a follow-up question to that. How has that changed, knowing what you know now and being where you're at now? How has that changed how you program or how you coach your over 40 population?
Well, it's been huge. I mean, obviously, all our programs are biased, right? Based on what we know, what we've experienced, who we've been exposed to, I guess. But I've been fortunate enough to have worked and continue to work with a group of guys, and there's about 12 guys since, practically when we opened the gym in 2007. Some of them joined in 2008, maybe 2009. So I've got kind of a nice sample, sports scientists would love this, N is 12, about 12 guys who I've worked with for 12 years, right?
Yeah.
And when we started out, they were on average, so a couple of guys are maybe a couple of years younger than myself. And then some guys are about, they range up to 10 years older than me. So it's quite a big range, right?
Yeah.
So when we started out, the youngest guy was, 27 or 26, and now they're, close to 40. And the older guy was, around 40 at the time, 39, and now they're hitting 50 this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously in those 12 years, I've adapted quite a lot. Back in the day, we were doing some Olympic lifting variations. We were doing a lot of density work, a lot of volume, I'd say. Even for back then, I thought it was quite a lot of volume, right? Because, these guys, some of them were actually, were high-level recreational athletes. Some had actually, played a bit of professional sport themselves, but they'd come in and everyone had stuff, right? Torn rotator cuffs, blowing out knees, whatever you want, right? So with time, but these guys, they always want to go after it. So for me, it's just been a question of choosing the right kind of mostly joint-friendly exercises. Obviously, we've thrown the Olympic lifts and variations out of the program mostly, but we still get the power stuff in, right? We still do the jumps, we still do the med ball slams, med ball throws, all that kind of stuff, all the cool stuff. We sometimes, from time to time, we'll still go like a dumbbell snatch here and there, stuff like that. But most of the, especially like upper body stuff, will be landmine presses, stuff like that. We won't overhead press, definitely bilaterally, and again, we fit the squat to their anatomy and needs, and they're not, I would say on average, I cycle, so we do 3-week cycles, and I probably do like 6 weeks on a squat variation before doing 3 weeks on a deadlift variation, just because most of them have, low back issues, and I don't really like them going into a conventional deadlift anyway. So we'll kind of rotate the main lifts just to make sure they're feeling nice and fresh. And I don't really do too many splits, but still, when we do a lower body session, there's like an upper body filler in there, and also like a mobility component to every session. So yeah, definitely want them, the main goal is to have them with me in 10 years time, right? Yeah. And if I want to do that, then I'm definitely not going to kill them on every session. So they come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and so we'll do like a lower body focused session on Monday, upper body focused session on Wednesday, and then a capacity or a density kind of session on a Friday, right? Nice. And it seemed to have worked pretty well. So I tweak the model from time to time, but I've never really gone too far away from it, just because I feel, with ain't broken, then why fix it? Absolutely. But obviously adjusting it along the way, right?
For sure. Okay, so last but not least, I want to go a little bit off the grid here, because I know you've got a passion project and I want to hear about it. So talk to me about the Movement Culture Project. What is it, and how did you get started with it?
All right. So yeah, this is something that I like talking about. And to be honest, we started the project 3 years ago, even more because, I had to kind of, think up of the concept and everything. And it took about 6 months before we did anything. But yeah, it was actually Nate Green who, and he probably doesn't even know it, but I think it must have been about 5 years ago now that he gave a little talk to the Vigor Ground coaches about, and I think John Berardi talks about it in his new book, Changemaker. Yeah, exactly. It's basically, find your unique abilities, and kind of make them count, right? So I thought to myself at the time, I'm not, a big presence on social media for various reasons that we probably don't have time to go into right now. But,
right.
So yeah, so I thought to myself, look, I want to make something that will make a difference, right? And that's unique to me. And I thought to myself, okay, what have I got that I could use to make a difference, in people's lives and to show, people. So I thought to myself, I love traveling. I've been all over the world. I speak many languages. I love movement. I love the, martial arts and all the traditional sports and how that integrates into people's lives. So I'd go across the world. So I'd shoot one documentary on movement culture on every continent. and I'd make a documentary about it. So I started out, decided to go to Rio de Janeiro first in Brazil because my jiu-jitsu coach and good friend, Carlos Maia, he's from Rio originally. And, we just had access to people who could tell a story over there. And why I did it was because I wanted to, having worked in professional sports and come across many youth athletes, a lot of these guys, they don't have the resources to come into my gym and pay for the training, right?
Right.
So I thought I would like to make training more accessible to certain people, and not just certain people, but also across the generations. I thought, so my dad and my mum, they developed Parkinson's disease about 6-7 years ago. My dad still goes into the gym twice a week, but you can see how that kind of disease influences the way you move. And I thought it would be really cool to come up with a project that would try to address that, and through a fun way, looking at how culture and environment impacts the way we move. And so we went to Brazil, we shot this documentary, and then, now it's been three years since I released it. So now it's ready and it's up. I've got a landing page now where people can go and check it out, and it's obviously free to check out. And all I'm really asking people is basically to share it if they think it's worth sharing. And there's a little kind of fundraising theme behind it as well. So we're trying to help people with Parkinson's disease and also underprivileged youths to come into the gym and train. So it's one episode in now, and obviously kind of because it was self-funded, it kind of took a back seat, and also to my studies, and now having a family and all that. But I'm really, really kind of convinced that I am going to make the other 4. So I'm just looking where we'll go next, whether it'll be Middle East, Africa, or maybe somewhere in Asia, depending on the situation right now when borders open. It's
right.
But it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to big time in the future.
And what is the website so that we can make sure we link it up?
So it's movementcultureprojects.com. That's what it is right now. And like I said, there's an intro video where I talk about why we and I made it, and then there's a short documentary that's about, I think it's under 20 minutes. So even for the people who don't have time, I think it won't be too long, and hopefully they'll get something out of it.
That's awesome. We'll make sure we get that in the show notes. We've done the big question before, so I want to go a little bit different route this time. If a new coach came to you and wanted 2 to 3 actionable items to help them be successful in their career, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, and one I get from a lot of the guys I mentor. It's been on my mind for quite a long time because, I've been doing this master's degree for the last 3 years, and before that, I was asking myself, how important is it to have a degree and, formal education to do what we do, right?
Right. And
I'm still not quite convinced, because obviously it helps, right? Because you do not have to know the basic science, right?
Right.
But it will only get you foot in the door. Not even that. You really, really need to know how to communicate. And like I said here, it's very cliche these days, but I think it's good. It's been a very good time to talk about the soft skills that we develop as coaches. And Nick Winkelman's out with a book. I think it's called The Language of
Coaching or something like
coaching.
that.
Yeah. And works like that are just huge to the field, the industry right now, because I don't think we do a good job of communicating to our clients and athletes. And I think it goes back to when you asked me the first question, basically my world, their world, right?
Yeah.
Because people are coming into your world and you have to make sure it's their world as well, right? And now how you do that, it depends on who's in front of you. You have to know the language of the person that's in front of you. And I think I talked a little bit about this in the first episode, is how knowledge of different languages has helped me, obviously working with people from different countries, obviously it helps. But I think developing that empathy and knowing what questions to ask, what buttons to press with clients is huge, and I think that's probably the most important skill. Obviously, I think knowing your program design, your functional anatomy, your physiology, it's all very important. But I think communication skills are probably the most important, I would say, right now.
Yeah.
Second thing right now is, and this is something that I've got to work on as well, is you need to, unfortunately, find a platform online to make yourself heard. Now, if you're not good with social media, you need to find another platform. Maybe that's a blog, maybe that's a podcast, maybe it's in-person workshops, because I find it much easier to talk to people face to face than into a camera. I always have done. I'm becoming a little bit better at it. But, going forward, like in the next 5 or 10 years, everyone is going to have to be able to talk to the camera. And especially when they're talking to a camera, they will have to be able to tell a story.
Yes.
And that story is going to have to resonate with the people on the other side of the camera and the people on the other side of the desk or wherever you're speaking to them. And I have to give a shout out to Luca here, my brother, because I think he does this very well. Obviously, I think he does too much of it, to be honest. But yeah, I think he does this really well, getting the why across and, taking the time to understand the person in front of them and also the target audience that you're speaking to. I think it's huge, right?
Absolutely.
That's one or two items, I guess. I could probably find a few more, but I think, for sure.
I love it.
For sure. Those are going to be the most important.
I love it. Okay. Last but not least, we've got our lightning round. So 4 questions, fairly short in length. Your answers can be as short or as long as you'd like. All right?
Sure.
All right.
Let's go.
Number 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, how awesome was it being an online client of mine? And yes, you can obviously answer something higher than 10.
Okay. So I want my money back, Mike.
Oh, man. Killing me.
Seriously. No, seriously. And I'm not just saying this, but it's so fun training with you. It's been immense, right? I think you know what you're looking at in the assessment, and you gave me exactly what I needed, right? Now, I suppose you could have gone and given me what I wanted.
Yes.
But I think it's much more important, especially at this stage of my life, that you gave me what I needed. And, to get into basic positions like the squat, to get me to feel better in these positions, feel stronger in these positions. And I think, obviously I've learned a lot from you along the way, and, obviously keep learning. But I think that, just buying into the process is huge. And on the back of that, I think it's so important that we had a relationship before that.
Yep.
Because I was able to be bought in like 100% from day one, man.
Yeah.
I don't think I think on the first cycle, I would say I looked at the program but you'd already like laid the groundwork, right? You already said, look, I'm not going to kill you in the first cycle. This may seem like too little for you rather than too much.
Right.
And I looked at the program and I said, okay, yeah, look, on paper, this doesn't look like much. But I actually went through the training and I thought to myself, well, no, this is actually exactly what I needed. The point is not to go overboard here. And then, 3 months in, I was like, yeah, I get it,
Right.
And hopefully, the same, that's what my clients get as well, and it's usually not until like the second or third cycle that they realize, wow, okay, I get what he's trying to do, right?
Yes.
But like I said, I probably would reiterate the fact that, if you're looking to train people in person or online, I think you need to establish a relationship first. Now, obviously, sometimes distance, remoteness will prevent you from having a face-to-face, relationship conversation. But I think you need to get to know the person before you start training them, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that because I had such a great relationship with you before, it was so easy to be brought in, and hence I thoroughly enjoyed the program. And still a beast now, man.
I love it, man. Yeah, and that's part of it, right? Like sometimes as a coach, you have to, in the nicest way possible, let people know, like, hey, we may do some stuff that is either uncomfortable or stuff that you don't think is important at this point in time, but this is why you're coming to me, because I feel like I have the best plan for you. So I think, again, it's the communication side of it, right? It's being able to relay, this is why we're doing this, and this is how it's going to pay off down the line. So
for sure.
Great stuff. Okay. Number 2, talk to me. What's it like being a dad? 9 months in, right?
Yeah, 9 months in. Well, man, you know you've got two kiddos
Yes.
of your own, but yeah, it's been great. It's definitely changed me. I'd say for the better. Man, I went through a phase. I think from 24 to can't even remember. Well, I spent more than a decade single, so obviously you can imagine that. It was kind of me first, and then everyone else later. But it just shifts that so much, and but you enjoy it, right?
Absolutely.
So I think without being too I don't want to sugarcoat it too much, but I think the most important thing to me is being able to influence how a little person will, kind of develop and basically grow up, and, just having that opportunity to shape and mold someone. And I don't mean like, too much hands-on, but just to have that opportunity. And basically probably the most important thing for me is passing on the experiences I've been blessed to have, having traveled across the world, and now being able to pass that on to my daughter is probably the most enjoyable part of it. And obviously right now, she's still small, but
right.
I think every day is a learning opportunity for me. And I think, it's probably given me more skills than any coaching manual could ever have. Right?
Absolutely.
Just looking forward to enjoy it day by day, I guess.
Absolutely, man. It's a fun time. It's a fun time for sure. Okay.
I'm not too sleep deprived, I have to say, so I'm really grateful for that.
I love that. Yeah, the first 3 months are the hardest. I always feel like if you can get through those first 3 months, because there's not a lot of personality, they don't sleep, you're sleep deprived. So if you can get through those first 3 months, you got a pretty good shot at this thing. So, okay, number 3. You've wrapped up the master's program, the thesis, you're like right there. What are you most excited about to read, watch, or dive into when you're done?
Well, first of all, I want to take the family for a vacation, and that's what we're doing. So we go the borders into Croatia have opened, so we're going to the wonderful island of Korčula, second part of June. And over there, I'll try to read as much as I can. I'm currently reading the Book of Why, which is a book on causal inference and all that kind of stuff. And it's a good book, and just trying to make sure I'm on point with my movement culture project. I think I'm gonna kind of decide on where we're gonna go next. Hopefully, politics and border openings permitting, and just really looking forward to spending time with Gaia and Urška, my girlfriend. So it's just really difficult right now to see beyond the next couple of weeks and just trying to take it a step at a time. But definitely looking to mentor more up and coming coaches, and looking forward to the Youth Champions League, man. That's definitely
that's exciting.
An exciting one for the fall this year.
Yeah. Well, I think number 4 might bleed into that, but last but not least, what's next for Matej Hocevar? Vacation, Youth Champions League, anything else you got going on that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, I've kind of said it all here. I mean, just enjoying each day over here, and I'm looking forward to maybe going to the States in October if Luca is able to pull off his Bigger Ground Summit. We're going to try to make it over.
Yes. And
he's helped me out with the movement culture project, so I'm kind of counting on him to use his, social media empire to spread the word.
Yes.
I'm actually really looking forward to seeing him. Hopefully he comes over in July. This COVID virus has definitely, kind of...
It shut everything down.
Shut everything down, made everything just move online, which is not always a great thing. I'm more of a, face-to-face person, so I'm looking forward to engaging more with friends and family for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Matej, you've been awesome today, my friend. So great catching up with you. Where can my listeners find out more about you and everything you have going on?
Well, my social media presence is limited, but I'm on Instagram, Hocevar Dervish, and then movementcultureproject.com will be a big thing. I also have a little blog that I've started not so long ago, makingsenseofperformance.com. So I'm going to try to do more stuff for sure online. Like I said, I get a lot of grief from Luca for not having the social media presence he has. So I'll try to up my game a little bit. But I'm not going to change. So I think it's going to be like coffee, friends, family, and traveling, man. So
I love it. I love it, man. That's why I called you in the first show, the world's like the most interesting man in fitness. So
thanks for that. I got some good feedback on that. Thanks.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. Well, again, Matej, thanks so much for coming on, man. This was really great.
Man, I appreciate you, Mike. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, my friend, that does it for this week's show with Matej. Sincerely hope you enjoyed it. I just enjoyed catching up with him, but I mean, such a wide range of topics there, from sports science to training adults to the Movement Culture Project, which I haven't watched yet. I am super excited to go check it out, though. He's just a super interesting guy. He's very well read, and most importantly, he's somebody that I consider a true and dear friend. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please help me out one of two ways. Number one, if you're not already subscribed, take 2 seconds out of your day, go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. This podcast is basically everywhere now. So find a place, subscribe to it, and start checking out the show on a regular basis. If you are already subscribed, thank you. Take 2 minutes out of your day and go to the iTunes store, give me a ranking, give me a review. If you feel like it's worth it, I would love a 5-star. I feel like put in great work every week to try and bring you a show that is going to make you a better trainer, a better coach, or a better athlete. But if you could do that, the rankings, the reviews, those things really help. Just get the show in front of more people, and that's what it's all about. It's making a massive impact, not only on trainers and coaches, but on all the clients and athletes that they work with as well. So my friend, as always, thank you so much for your support. Love and appreciate you, and we'll be back soon with our next episode. Take care.